The weather's been so cold out recently, you could be forgiven for wanting to hide away from anything that is frozen. But with all that ice around, it's the perfect opportunity for children to experience the feel of cold ice and to understand how it behaves, how it melts, etc. Here are a range of ice-related play learning ideas, which will help children to develop an understanding of science, use STEM skills, be artistic, and so much more. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, hit that subscribe button and let's get started. First up, a fun art activity with frozen paint. This is great for any little ones who are reluctant to touch the ice with their fingers. To make these frozen paints, I half-filled the section of an ice cube tray with ordinary children's paint. Then I topped up each section with water. I covered the tray with foil and poked lolly sticks through to be the handles. The foil is great for keeping them in position as the paint freezes. Finally, I placed them in the freezer until they were frozen. Overnight works best. When you want to use them, simply remove the frozen paint from the ice cube tray and place them in a hint of water to get the melting started. Then, each paint can be picked up by the stick and slid over the paper, leaving behind it a trail of colour as the paint melts from the frozen block. While carrying out this artwork, discussions can be had about how the paint is marking the paper. What causes it to melt? How does it feel as it moves? There is of course lots of creative opportunity too, and even reluctant mark makers may well engage with this new spin on painting. Of course, you can also use this as an opportunity to identify colours. You can begin with small children by just narrating their actions or your own. Oh, you're making a straight line with the orange. Or try joining in and asking for different colours. Can I use the green, for example? To further explore colour learning with your child, try the Curious Kids 101 Colour Learning Pack. It is available in my shop now. Practically, this activity worked very well. You need to be organised enough to freeze the paint in advance, and I recommend using large paper on the floor to mark make on. But the paint is diluted, and that makes it a lot easier to wash off if there are any spills. And it was actually a lot cleaner than many of our regular painting sessions. The paints can also be replaced into the freezer and used again if they've not completely melted during the session. Next up, we made an ice candle holder. I used a plastic tub and asked the kids to fill it with a little bit of water. Then we placed it into the freezer. After a couple of hours, I returned to the freezer with the kids and took it out. "How has it changed?" I asked. We discussed how the water has frozen. It's hard and solid now, instead of pourable and runny. Then I placed a cup in the centre of the plastic tub, on top of the ice layer, and weighed it down. Then I invited the kids to fill the rest of the tub. They used cut-up pieces of orange, berries, fir branches, and other bits from outside. Then we added a bit more water, and returned it to the freezer. We started this activity in the morning, and by dinner time it was ready. Placing it on a suitable plate, I placed it in the middle of the table while we ate, with a candle inside. As we ate, we could see the ice melting back into water. It was so restful and calming to watch during the meal, and helped to keep the kids calm at the table as well. We chatted as they watched about how they'd made it, and how long we thought it would take for it all to melt. As it was, it easily survived the mealtime, and they hurried off to play, but came back and checked how it was doing many times before bed. Obviously, I removed the lit candle when there wasn't adult supervision of this. Finally, I love using ice in Tuff Tray setups, here are a few ideas of things we've done. Experiencing the feel of ice can be stimulating enough for very young children. We discuss all the ways that we can describe how the ice feels. Words like cold, freezing, chilly, hard, solid, slippery and wet, etc. The children may be able to come up with some more words themselves. You can encourage their involvement by asking simple questions to prompt them, e.g., is it hot or cold? Does it feel soft to you? Well, what's the opposite of soft then? In this Tuff Tray, I froze toy fish inside ice and encouraged the boys to melt the ice or chip it away in order to get the fish out and feed the penguins. On another occasion, I took some of the kids' Lego minifigures and placed them into an ice cube tray. I covered them with water and placed them in the freezer overnight. The next day, I collected the frozen minifigures and a piece of guttering, and we were ready to go. We positioned the guttering to make a luge track and began an experiment. At the start, I asked the kids to slide the Lego minifigures down the ramp. What did they notice? Why did they go down the ramp? Were they fast or slow? Did they get stuck anywhere? We talked about gravity and friction. Then I challenged the children to adjust the track by changing the angle of the slope. We tried it again. Was anything different? I asked them to make it as fast as possible, or as slow but still getting to the other end. They very much enjoyed this challenge. But as you can see, it's very difficult to film. It just became a complete blur. They were really, really speedy. Recently, my eldest has been very interested in construction. So for our latest Tuff Tray, I decided to add a STEM element in order to keep him engaged, but also to keep it accessible for my youngest child. The middle of the Tuff Tray was filled with ice cubes, a few whales and some seals. Give it a real Antarctic feel. 2 areas of land were created with penguins on them, and a few Antarctic explorers. After a bit of free play time, I challenged my kids to build a bridge to help the explorers cross the ice to the penguins. I provided blocks, foil, lolly sticks within the tray, and invited them to use anything that they could find in the tray to create their bridge. Is the bridge strong enough to hold the penguins and the people? Can you make it longer or wider? How can we strengthen it? Building on ice is very hard. Why is that? How can we avoid this problem? With all of these questions, there was lots to think about and lots of discussions were had. Eventually, the result of this challenge was a brilliant bridge created across the Tuff Tray. The boys had lots of fun, and then when I left them again, created more free play opportunity. They used the bridge and decided that they were going to have a penguin rescue. They used the pom-poms as giant hailstones and created a deadly hailstorm. Eventually, the result of this challenge was a brilliant bridge created across the Tuff Tray. The boys had lots of fun. They played for ages until the ice was pretty much melted. This is a great way of demonstrating how small input from you can result in a lot more playtime. So there you have it, ice play which doesn't take much effort to set up, but will keep your kids busy and learning for ages. Which ones will you try?